In this video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I would go about sifting through a source. So what you are seeing in front of you is the source evaluation worksheet using the SIFT. Notice that there are the four categories, S, I, F, and T. And so what do? You're doing a speech, you think you find a source, maybe you're worried about, is it a good source, is it not a good source? So just stop and take a deep breath, and let's use the SIFT method to see how we could do that. So I'm going to start with just a Google search. I'm actually going to open up another window here. Okay, and I'm going to search. I've decided that I'm going to do my speech about Dumbo Octopus. I found this looking for strange animals, and this kind of captured my attention. I said, sure, why not? So the first thing I'm going to do is stop and look. I'm not going to click on the first thing I come to. I'm just going to look and see what I find. So the first source that comes up is something called Oceana. I don't know what that is. Again, I'm just going to keep going through and looking. Aquarium of Pacific. There's a Wikipedia. There's Ocean Conservancy. Something from Smithsonian, which is a .edu. So I'm intrigued by that. I've heard of Smithsonian before, so that may be something that says, oh, I would trust that source. But again, I'm going to just keep going. National Geographic. I don't know what One Earth is. I'm going to probably stay away from Live Science. Not saying that I wouldn't use it. It's just that I see that there's some others that might be a little bit better for me to use. Now I could continue seeing more, but let's not for our purposes. So I'm going to go back up to the top because were a couple that I was familiar with the source and some that I wasn't. I'm going to pick one that I wasn't. And I'm going to actually choose this Aquarium of Pacific. So let's go ahead and do that. All right. And here we have information about the Dumbo octopus. But for me, I don't know what Aquarium of Pacific is. So the first thing, before I even look at any specific information about this topic, is I need to say, well, what's this source? Why would I even trust this source? What is it? I mean, I can infer that it's an aquarium somewhere near the Pacific, but I might be wrong. So I would want to check that out and see. So the first thing I could do is certainly go to an About Us section, but I'm going to use that SIFT method that we did before, and I'm going to actually go ahead and Google Aquarium of the Pacific, and then I'm going to put Wikipedia in there. And now let's go to Wikipedia and see what we can find out about Aquarium of the Pacific. Okay, so they do have this. Gosh, there's some pictures. Let me move that over there. There's some information about it. I see that it's in Long Beach, California. It is an aquarium that sees about 1.5 million visitors a year. So that's a pretty big aquarium. It doesn't look like it's physically very big on a 5-acre site. But again, it's an aquarium, not a zoo. So that's okay. Total staff of about 1875. Wow, more than 1,500 volunteers and 375 employees. So that's interesting. It is a 501c3, which means it's a nonprofit. It's a corporation for tax purposes. It's also an accredited member of the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. So this is all information that makes me feel better about this source. Now you might say, well, what is the Association of Zoos and Aquariums? Again, I can hover over this and get that information so I can read about what that is. And you don't need to keep going and keep going and keep going with this, but you do want to do a little bit of research about your source, not about the information, the source, about the source itself, to make sure that your source is good. Now I can see in this Wikipedia site there is a lot more information. I could go in and read about it. I see that there are all these references. So if I was in doubt, I could try to dig a little deeper, explore a little bit more. But I'm going to tell you for my purposes, for not only for this speech that I'm creating, but also if I was just a person curious about the Dumbo octopus, I feel like given what I know, I am okay with using this information from this source from Aquarium of the Pacific. This was where I went to get information to get about that. So now I've got this source evaluation worksheet. So how am I going to fill this out? Well, here, and you'll see in the course, there is a sample. And so I invite you to use this sample as a guide when you are completing yours. And basically what this does is that it puts in writing what I just did in sifting. And I mention in here that as far as, investigating the source, went to Wikipedia, find better coverage. I will tell you right now, if I was doing this speech, I would absolutely be going to that National Geographic source and that Smithsonian source. I probably would even head into the hack databases and see if I could find something. I would, and then I'd see, is there a collaboration? Is there a corroboration between all the sources? It's like, wow, they're giving me similar information. And so that's something I would note. And then I would also, in that original source, as far as tracing the information, were there any links in there? Was there anything? And I'll tell you that there wasn't. There are little areas you could open, so it did give some nice information about it. Not overwhelming information, certainly for the purpose of an informative speech. Absolutely good information, and I trust this source. And so that's it. When I sat down and I did this myself, it probably took me about 10 minutes, and then to quickly type something up. It didn't take all that long, and I can say confidently that I now feel better about using this source. I feel that my credibility is extended because this information is good and I can share it with you. And so as you're thinking about doing your sifting through your sources, and if you use a .com, a .net, or a .org, this is how you can use that, and then this is how you could fill out the worksheet. Again, this is in D2L. I encourage you to download it and use it as a sample.